Hello, hello. Hope you guys are doing great. We are live streaming today into my Facebook group, The Profit Factor, my YouTube channel, The Profit Factor, and also onto my business Facebook pages, The Chic CFO. And we are actually going to repurpose this live training and pull the audio and put it onto Apple Podcasts. So if you guys prefer to listen to audio only, you'll be able to hear it there as well. Now, if you are here live with me, please grant StreamYard permission so I can see your name and go ahead and say hello. Let me know that you are watching. And if you are watching the replay, do me a favor in the comments, just do hashtag replay. Just being perfectly honest with you guys, any type of interaction, likes, comments that you guys leave, it helps the algorithm, which helps me get my videos in front of more people. Now, if you are new here, my name is Danae Wolf. I'm a financial clarity coach and a profit strategist, which means that I help entrepreneurs like you increase your profits and decrease your stress simply by understanding how money works in your business. My entire goal in my tiny corner of the internet is to help you guys really understand small business financials. I know that they can be really complicated, and I really just thrive on taking something that's extremely complicated and simplifying it. I did a live training like 2 weeks ago about how I think the key to profitability is simplicity. I am all about keeping it simple. And that's really what I strive to do. Hi, Heather. How are you? Thanks for tuning in. Now, today I'm super excited because we are going to be talking about growing versus scaling your business. And I think a lot of times in the entrepreneurial community, those words are really being used like they're the same thing. They're just interchangeable in most of your minds. And I'm here to tell you that's not the case. Growing your business versus scaling your business are two very different things. And I want to just kind of start off with an analogy to kind of give you guys sort of a mental picture as to the way I view this. So think of growing your company as a snowball, sort of just rolling down a hill and just catching its own momentum, right? And it's just flipping and flopping and getting bigger and bigger as it goes. And you're really just chasing behind it. You have no idea which direction it's going to go, when it's going to stop. You're kind of just along for the ride. Now, scaling your company, think about that same snowball, only you have the reins and you are riding that bad boy like it's a stallion. You are controlling it. You are telling the snowball which way to go. So I hope I didn't confuse the shit out of you guys, but that's how I always think about it in my head. When we're growing and we're in that growth phase, we are not being intentional, right? A lot of times when an entrepreneur comes to me and they're like, "Oh my God, we've doubled in, the last year." And I say, "Oh, how did you do that?" And they're like, "I don't know." That is how I know you are in a growth phase. You are not in a scaling phase. Okay. Growth is something that happens to your business. Scaling is something you do to your business. And the key difference here is intentionality. So when you are in a situation where your business is growing, you're losing that sense of control. You weren't intentional about it. You are just kind of busting at the seams. And this is really where I see a lot of businesses honestly just fold up. And I call it growing pains because what happens is you're not equipped for that type of growth. You weren't ready for it. So you didn't really lay a foundation to support a business that big because you just woke up one day and the business had snowballed. And I can tell you from my personal experience, I started, I'm just going to be very honest with you guys because That's why I'm here, to be honest and vulnerable. And hopefully, you guys can learn something from my stories and experiences. But when I started my virtual CFO and financial clarity coaching and profit strategizing consulting, I genuinely started it because I had quit my job. I had sold 2 previous businesses that I had. And I really said to my husband, I have this very expensive Sephora habit. And I had worked our entire relationship. We had split bills. It had always been just the way that we did things. And I was like, okay, so now you have to support us. And I have one habit that is just a bit obnoxious. And I don't think that you should be paying for, me to go to Sephora. So I was like, I'm just going to, take this little side hustle and make sure I can afford to go to, the annual sale at Sephora. In my head, that's what I was doing, right? I wanted some play money because if I wanted to indulge or splurge, I didn't want to feel like I was, taking from my family. So I started this to go to Sephora, guys. Legit. That was what happened. And that means I had air quotes of systems in place for a side hustle because in my head, that's what this was. And as I guess luck would have it, the business took off. It snowballed. And before I knew it, I was really in over my head. And I had to completely break down the business and start from scratch with building proper foundations and systems. And that's why, outside of money, one of the things that I absolutely am so passionate about talking about is time management and systems, because I know what it's like to start this business and think this is going to be a little side hustle. This is going to be some fun money. And then, boom, before you know it, it's growing to a multiple 6-figure business and you don't have the systems in place. And that's why I call it growing pains. That was a rough time in business. I really had sort of 1 foot in, 2 foot out. Like, on the one hand, I felt like I quit my, regular 9 to 5 job so I could be home with my kids, but I wanted this little side hustle. And then I was like, oh my gosh, the side hustle is really just taking away from the time with my kids. And all of a sudden I feel like I'm in a job again. And it was just this crazy hamster wheel. And I finally had to stop the ride and say, okay, what the hell is going on here? Well, let me tell you what was going on, guys. I had Post-it notes with everything out instead of using a normal software like ClickUp or Asana. Asana is what I use today. I didn't have any type of process in place for my clients. I didn't have one place where I was storing all of my passwords. Shout out to LastPass. That app has literally changed my life. So all of this happened because, again, it was growing. It was growing pains. I did not intentionally grow the business. It just happened. It was word of mouth. It happened. And if you're an entrepreneur, guys, chances are you're ambitious, you're a go-getter, you're a hustler. So we find it very hard to say no, especially in the beginning, right? Because many people might just say, oh, don't grow your business. If you're getting overwhelmed, if you feel like you have no control over the snowball, turn down the business. Guess what? If you're turning down the business, you're probably not going to be in business long. Okay. It is innate in our nature with our entrepreneurial spirit, right? We go big or go home, even if we didn't intend to go big, right? If it happens, we don't say no. So it's really not an option to just say no to the business, right? So you have to, first of all, be able to say, okay, I have lost control of the situation, right? Like, what is it? The first step to dealing with a problem is admitting you have one, right? And then you have to sit back and say, all right, I started this business and I had processes and systems, or maybe you have no systems at all, but you were doing it at, say, revenue of $100,000 a year. And now you've grown and you're doing $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year. What got you here won't get you there, right? You're in a different phase of business. So you have to bring in that component, right? What did I say the difference was between growing and scaling? Being intentional. You've got to get back to being intentional, and you've got to take control of the situation, because growing pains can truly destroy a business. I'm sure most of you, if you're watching this, I'm assuming you've heard of Shark Tank. And not that I'm comparing myself to Shark Tank, okay? Clearly they're getting a little bit more viewers than me, but I'm just saying you're probably in the same head spot. You probably watch Shark Tank. So you've seen the stories of people who are like, oh, first year sales were 300 grand, second year 700. This year we're on track for $5 million. And it's like, oh, well, how's it going at the $5 million? And the entrepreneur legit bursts into tears and says they're in so much debt and having all these issues and they're exhausted and they're, guys, that's the growing pains. Because remember, growth happens to your business. Scaling is something you do to your business. So if you are looking at your revenues and you are seeing growth and the numbers are increasing, right? I want you to ask yourself, am I in a growth phase or am I in a scaling phase? Because you have to know what you're dealing with so that you can really be equipped to handle it. And if you're finding yourself in that growth phase, I strongly urge you to take a time out, sit down, and look at the foundation that your business is built on. All right. Foundation is everything. Right now, I'm in the middle of building a custom home. It's a disaster, but that's neither here nor there. We were supposed to be in forever ago, still not in the house. But I was learning in that process how important the foundation was and how many inspections we had to get when they laid the foundation. And if you're not in a home build, you're probably in a relationship, right? Just think about your marriage, right? The root of my marriage, the foundation of my marriage is that Brad and I have an amazing friendship, right? We count on that foundation when shit gets hard, right? We have to go back to that base, back to that foundation. And when you're in a growth phase, what happens is you didn't have a foundation built to handle that. So think about it like you put in a foundation for a 1,500 square foot house, and now you've got a 5,000 square foot house. That foundation cannot support it. So you've got to dig in, get into that foundation, and make sure that you start implementing and executing systems and processes that can support what your business has grown into. Now, scaling. Scaling is a beautiful thing, because scaling is something that we as entrepreneurs do with intention. Okay. Now, for me, I just shared with you guys my growth phase, right? I was in a situation where this was going to be my side hustle. And before I knew it, it really snowballed. And I had to sit down and get systems and processes in place and all of my workflows. And I did it, and it was great. But with knowledge, right, comes power. I realized through cleaning up my systems and finally organizing my business how many clients I would have to take on in order to really have the business achieve what I wanted it to financially for me and my family. And I realized at that point that having that many clients would not be able to give me the lifestyle I wanted, right? Because I believe 100 million percent in having utmost customer service. Like, you know, that like parents will say, you're only as happy as your saddest child, right? To me, your business is only as strong as your saddest client, right? We need to make sure that our clients are well taken care of. And I just knew that if I had, you know, X amount of clients, it was going to become challenging to keep up the quality. And I just was not willing to do that and sacrifice my reputation. But I knew I wanted to scale. So I launched my digital products. I've got my Know Your Numbers Now template, my spreadsheet, $27, shameless plug. I'll put the link at the bottom here in the comments. But I've got that spreadsheet. And then I've got my signature course, Profit Perfect, another shameless plug. I'll go ahead and link that down below as well. But by incorporating those digital products, I was able to launch a course so that I could still stay true to my mission, which is to seriously eradicate entrepreneurial poverty by teaching you guys how to increase your profits and decrease your stress. But in order for it to be scalable, I had to remove that one-to-one aspect, that client done for you services. I knew I had to cap that. And to this day, at any point in time, I can log into my Asana and tell you guys exactly how many clients I can take on right now before we have to add another team member, because I've got everything down to a science because of my systems and processes that I put in place. So my course allowed me to increase my revenue in a way that was going to have ease for me, in a way that was not going to have me working 60, 70 hours a week, and in a way that was going to ensure that my clients got top-notch service. So I set about to increase my revenue with being intentional by launching the course. That is very, very different. So when I initially grew, it was because clients were just contacting me. It was word of mouth. I didn't know when somebody was going to contact me, when somebody wasn't going to contact me. I just was kind of along for the ride and felt very out of control with it. Whereas with my course, I'm intentional. I decide when I promote it, right? I decide when the link is live, right? I decide what day of the week we do. Everybody who's a part of that group program, we do once a week Zoom calls so you can get access to me and ask me any questions that you might have, just so I can make sure you guys get some hand, holding throughout the process. Because my promise to everybody when they take Profit Perfect is there will be no student left behind. But I get to control it, right? I'm intentional about it. Yes, we all want to increase our revenue. We all want to make more money. But if you're in a growth phase, you really have no control over how that's happening, and you're along for the ride. When you're scaling, you're making that shit happen. You are intentional about it. And what I want all of you to take away from this today is, number one, look at your situation and ask you, where the hell am I? Am I in a growth phase? Am I in a scaling phase? Which one is it? Because you have to first really identify what you are dealing with. And if you're in your growth phase, be smart about setting up your systems and processes. And as soon as possible, make that pivot. Every time I hear pivot, I think Ross Geller, pivot, but make that pivot to scaling, because scaling is where the magic happens. Everything you guys do in life, frankly, whether it is, having to do with your business, having to be with the way you parent, having to be with the way you are in your marriage, everything should be intentional, guys. That's legit one of my all-time favorite words. You want to be intentional with everything you do. So when you are trying to increase your revenue and you want to make more money in your business, be intentional about it. Determine how you want to scale. Sometimes people just say, hey, I want to be able to make more money, right? But they're not thinking about how many hours do I want to work, right? They're not thinking about what days of the week do they want to work, what hours of the day. You might be someone who says, the plan for our family is that I watch the kids, during the day. We don't send them to daycare. And then I'm going to work at night. Well, that could be really challenging if your business is built on you doing coaching calls, because chances are your clients don't want to hop on a call at 3 a.m., right? So you want to take this moment to sit back and really take a holistic view. I want you guys to build businesses that can support the life you desire. Too often, you're stuck on this hamster wheel because you're actually putting blood, sweat, and tears into a business that cannot give you the life you desire, because you didn't take the time to sit back and say, okay, how much money do I want to make? And then back that into, how much revenue does that mean my business needs to make? And back that into, how many clients does that mean I need to serve? And back that into, how many hours a week does that mean I need to work? And back that into, does that work for me? Is that going to make me happy? Am I going to feel fulfilled? And if the answer is no, pivot. And for me, that pivot was into digital products, but you have to figure out what that pivot would be or if a pivot is even necessary. But the point is for you to realize you have to be in control. All right. Too often I see entrepreneurs start a business because they were miserable working for someone else and they wanted to be in charge of their destiny. And now they're just exhausted. They're in tears. They're so overwhelmed and they are anything but in control. And I want you to be able to identify that. Okay. I just spoke with one of my absolute favorite entrepreneurs and she's in such a growth phase and she's going through it. She's struggling and she just has to get to that place where she starts to be intentional about it and takes control over it. And that's so hard to do when you're in the midst of these growing pains. And none of this is easy. You know, I get what I'm saying is easier said than done. It's hard to kind of even have time to watch a video like this when you're in the middle of growing pains. But hopefully, you guys will be able to have part of this resonate with you and identify what you're seeing in your business and hopefully take control of the situation because our goal is always to increase the money we put in our pocket, but we want to do it through scaling, right? We want to be really careful that we are intentional about the way in which we grow our company, or you might wake up one day, guys, and you've got a lot of money and you are a very unhappy person because you are not designing your company to give you the type of life you want. And that is what I'm hoping to empower you guys to do. I hope this was helpful. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you got anything from it or you have any questions, please, please, please put it in the comments below. We really, really appreciate anything that you guys can do to help our engagement and our algorithm so we can get these videos and trainings out to more people. And if you're listening on the podcast, I would love it if you could leave a review and subscribe. That also really helps us spread the word. I will see you guys next week.